You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello, and welcome to another show of Business Wealth Impact. Today we have Michael Ostrolenk, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist with transpersonal specialization with postgraduate studies in somatic psychology. And he's also a resilience coach. Welcome, Michael. So tell us about your resilience model that we were chatting about before.
Yeah. So my basic intention is that it's important to think about mental, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual resilience. But in my 30 years of work in the space, I contextualize it in kind of other factors and other pillars, as I say. One of them is physiological, the psychological I just named, environmental, and social. I think all four areas, and there's factors within each area. If you address them, you increase the likelihood of becoming even more resilient in your life. And I think I start with the physiological one first, because that's usually where I start with my clients, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead. No, let's take us through it. Let's help people to become more resilient in the 20 minutes or so that we're going to speak. Let's move that needle for them.
Yeah. So one of the first things I talk to clients about on the physiological sense is their sleep. How are you sleeping? And if they're not sleeping well, literally that's the first thing that I help them address. Now, if they have a sleep disorder, they need to go see a medical advice. But they're just having general difficulties with sleep. That's one thing we focus in on. And I'm a biohacker. I've been kind of in the biohacking space since literally 1988, 89, right before biohacking was a thing. So I've been tracking for a long time, like Aura Ring. So you can get these devices which track physiological measurements, including sleep, deep sleep, REM, latency, things along those lines. You don't necessarily need those things, but I encourage clients to do those things they can track. Because once you start tracking your sleep and some other factors, you can start seeing the relationship between, for instance, your stress and sleep, food you consume in sleep, things along those lines, relationships and sleep. Yeah, so diet your sleep. We also look at diet and nutrition. Now, I don't believe that there's a universal diet for all human beings, but there are some general principles that I encourage my clients to follow. And if they have medical conditions, seek medical help. That's not something different. But you want to get your food in order because we know it has effects on your cognition and your energy, even on your sleep.
100%.
Yeah. Another thing we look at is fitness and movement. Now, you don't have to be an athlete. I happen to work with pretty high performing people, just in the military space, but you don't have to be. But I encourage my clients to be physically active. Barre, Kung Fu, CrossFit, whatever your thing is, do your thing, 3 or 4 times a week. And I make a distinction between fitness like that. We prescribe activities for a period of time and movement. Movement is like, hey, if you're in front of your computer all day doing your thing, get up and move every 90 minutes. Like even let's just walk around the block or some Tai Chi, some yoga, some Qigong, just something to get the energy moving and your physicality moving. So you're not in the same position, which is a whole host of problems we can discuss later if you want to. And then circadian biology and stress management are pieces of the two, because thanks to the Industrial Revolution, we have a lot of nice things, but we also have a lot of disruptions to our circadian biology, the 24-hour day-night light cycles. And, exogenous chemicals and artificial light has an effect on us. So I deal with my clients to better live within how we've evolved over millions of years on this planet Earth. And you can't always do that completely because we do have obligations and there are artificial things in our environment which have effects on us. We can minimize. So that is also an important thing too. And part of that is, as Huberman would say, if you ever listen to Huberman Labs, rousing with the sun, watching the sunset, the sun in the morning and the evening literally has an effects on us because we evolved to be in the sun and it, triggers certain processes in us. And it's important to live within those processes if you want to optimize your health, which then increases your chances for being more resilient in the world. And then stress management, like how do you deal with your stress is also a big piece of it too. So those are the physiological things that I address.
Okay. So questions about that.
Yeah.
Some of the things to do that I know, because I'm a biohacker as well,
Nice.
is to watch the sunrise is one of them, right? And also grounding. I don't do this, but apparently grounding, like taking your shoes off and standing on the ground as the sun rises. Okay. So you're saying basically get up when the sun is rising, or I walk in the mornings. They say that's good.
Nice.
Even if it's okay. So what are some specific things people can do?
Well, with sleep, there's a friend of mine, Dr. Kirk Parsley. He's a sleep expert. He's also a retired SEAL. He's a medical doctor, and he's kind of my go-to on these kind of things. And some of the things that he recommends is go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time. A schedule is really important. Now, if you're a parent, that changes things depending on the age of your child, of course. And if you're a shift worker, that's completely different too. But generally speaking, it's really good to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. And part of that for me is what are your evening rituals, which helps your system decompress from the day and prepare for bedtime. Because if you're running around, then you get to bed, it's going to take some time for your system to calm itself down for sleep.
There's no way you're going to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would disrupt his sleep. So like there are certain things that I always encourage my clients to do. And it's different for every client, the situations are different, but a few things, generally speaking, is there a meditative practice you can do before you go to bed just to calm the system down? Part of that could be a guided meditation if you're not so inclined to sit and have your breath or a mantra. If you need someone else's voice to kind of guide you, that's fine. This is not for spiritual development. It's more for managing the human system.
Calming. Yeah.
Yeah, calming it down. You can use binaural beats. I love those. There's different ones you can get. One for calming the system down, one for getting you more excited. So those kind of things you can do too. At clients journal. So prior to doing any of these things, journal your day, reflect back on the day. What are your wins? What you've done differently? Think about what you need to get accomplished tomorrow. So you're not thinking about it all night long. So you're just really clear on the day previous and what you need to be doing tomorrow. So you're not waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning like, oh my God, what I had going on today.
Mm.
And I think kind of data dumping or getting out of your system at night, not right at night before you go to bed, but soon, a couple hours before you go to bed is really important. And don't eat or go to bed. They recommended 2 to 3 hours.
That's interesting because they say, it's better to not do that for everything. Is it called autophagy or something?
Yeah, there's a period of time if you're not consuming food that your body will start using aspects of self, breaking it apart and using it, like metabolizing your own cells that are not productive as productive as it could be.
Right.
But that takes time.
Yeah. However, some people can't sleep if they have an empty stomach, like me. If I close enough to my bedtime, I get hungry. So they say you should be eating a little bit of protein before bed and you sleep better.
Okay, so and this is kind of the bio-individuality because I like to say there's no one size fits everyone. I always encourage my clients experiment. Talk to other practitioners if you have a disorder, disease, or problem. Like, hey, let's experiment. So I had people very much like you, and what's been recommended to me, what I try to recommend to them is like there's a amino powder people can take. Take it now before you go to bed. So it is the protein you say, but it's not really heavy. It's not it's not soy or cow based or anything like that. So you do have something in your system and it can calm you down. But I've also seen other people recommend other things, a little bit higher carbs, not a full meal, but something for you to bed. That's interesting. And you could do two things. Like you can literally three things: subjective experience, try something, not just for one night, because there's other factors you might not be recognizing, but try something for like a week and watch your aura ring. How does it affect deep sleep? How does it affect REM, latency? How you feel in the morning? That's all like you have objective measurements to determine if this affects you in a positive or negative way. And just subjectively, like, how do I feel? Do I feel like rested? I feel, whatever it is, that's important information as well. And then you can always get a glucose monitor, put it on your arm and watch yourself overnight to see, what spikes and it's a relationship between the spiking and you waking up. Like, because like ultimately what I tell my clients is experiment and then look for the different factors that you can modify slightly over time to move you in the direction you want to move into. A lot of self-awareness, a lot of self-practice, a lot of self-experimentation.
Good. Okay. So let's move on to the next three. So we got that one.
Okay.
So that we covered. Now let's move through the next three with tips on how to become more resilient.
So I'll do the social one and then environmental one, then we jump into like the psychological one, which is my background and training. On the social side, what I do is we look at your communities of practice, we look at your social systems, and we ask the questions: what are your relationships like? Like, let's just say you're married. Is your spouse supportive of your growth, development, health, and well-being? Now, it might sound like a strange question, but I work with a lot of couples because I'm also a couples relationship person. And although they think they're supportive of their partner, out of fear and insecurity and whatever else might be going on for them, they're less than supportive. They believe they have good intent, but the behavior kind of is crossed at maybe their intent.
Right.
So it's like, oh, we have to clean that up. What kind of communication do we need? What kind of agreements do we need? How do we have these kind of conversations so we can get support from our partner so we can live happier, healthier, more productive lives? And it's not just our primary relationships, but our friends and coworkers. What are those relationships like? Well, we map those things out. What needs to be improved over time? So I might invite a spouse into a conversation, a friend, a coworker. I will work with like when I work with people, I work with their team. Like if they have a doctor or a therapist or a psychiatrist or a naturopath, I engage in conversations with them. So we're all on the same team, making sure we're helping this particular client move in the same direction. So it's like, I think systemically, I think team, I call these social ecologies. And then communities of practice. Are you part of communities which help you grow and develop in any area of your life? And we can break resilience down into like emotional resilience, mental resilience, physical resilience. So like, maybe physicality is really important to you. So are you part of a CrossFit team? If CrossFit's your thing, it doesn't happen. But whatever your thing is, but is it a community and are they supportive? Because it's one thing to go to a class, you see some of your friends, you do whatever you do, and then you go away. It's a different thing of like you go to that class and people are slapping you on the butt. Good job. It's appropriate. Metaphorically slapping you on the butt. Good job. Great. Good work. Where were you yesterday? We missed you. Like it's more of a community than just a class where people might engage each other. So communities of practice are important. It could be, for instance, a spiritual community. You guys get together and you pray, you meditate, chant, whatever the spiritual system you're engaged with. I encourage you to be doing. Emotional resilience. Maybe like I co-lead a men's group. Maybe you're part of a men's group. You get accountability and support.
All right. So there's the social part. So we got that part. So we got that. Okay. Let's move on now. So what's the third part?
The other part's environmental. And environmental has two different pieces. We look at your home, your office, and your transportation. And we ask, are they supportive of the person you're trying to become?
Okay. So like if it's really messy, don't be messy. If it's really noisy, cut down the noise.
Those are great examples. Yeah.
Right.
And the way I look at it is via negativa and via positiva. Via negativa is what do we need to remove from the environment? You just named a few. And via positiva, what do we need to add?
So like lovely stuff in your home, like plants.
Plants are great for oxygenation, and there's healing benefits from plants. I'll just speak to on the physicality side. I had a client who's training up for SEAL Fit's Corporal Camp and he's having a hard time with the pull-ups. So I say, why don't you get a pull-up bar for your home office? So every time you walk underneath it to go to the bathroom, walk your dog, have coffee, have lunch, you got to do pull-ups both sides all the time. Every day he's doing 20 extra pull-ups because he switched his environment to support behavior he wanted to improve upon, which is in this case pull-ups. But it could be a meditation. Like, hey, you want to meditate? Do you have a place for meditation, a quiet place that has maybe the religious icons or spiritual symbols that you want, that you're not distracted? So, via positiva, what do I need to add to my environment?
Okay, so it's taking away bad stuff and putting in good stuff. So that's the next part is the environment. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And feng shui helps.
That's also a great thing too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then what's the fourth one?
Well, last little piece on the environmental piece is what do you use in your home or in your office for cleaning purposes or for cosmetics or hair care?
Non-toxic.
That could be toxic. Yeah, exactly. Non-toxic. And then replace it with stuff that's less so or positive.
Yeah. We detoxified our home years ago. Like we don't buy, but still, there's still cosmetics that it's really hard to get all toxins out of cosmetics. We really try, but we have not bought Clorox and I never bought Clorox ever. So yeah, it's important to get the toxins out. Okay. So if we do let's just name the four again, just the four.
Okay. So physiological, psychological,
yes,
social, and environmental.
Environment. Okay, good. So if people are aware of these four, then what happens? Tell me some examples of how are they becoming more resilient? Because all of this could be just a plan to be healthier.
Well, and that's that parallels.
So how does this make people actually more resilient doing all this?
So one of the ways to think about resilience is, actually, I'll give you two ways. One is like you fall down 7, you get up 8. Life is hard sometimes. It kicks you in certain body parts, and you have a choice. Like you can face the adversity with like, oh, woe is me as a victim. And in many cases, you probably are, you could be a victim to a circumstance or a person. I'm not saying that's not true, but what is your mindset to that? One of mine says I'm a victim and woe is me and it breaks me down and it slows me down and such. Another one's like, oh, I'm going to take this as lessons to learn. I'm going to grow, evolve, adapt, and learn from a completely different mindset. So that is one way. Like when I think about resilience, all those factors contribute to you being able to do that more and more. Take that because a positive mental attitude or growth oriented mindset, in my opinion, is not just how you think, it's also how you feel, how you breathe, your posture, your muscle tone, how your organs work. Like all those things are really important. Plus the 5 people you surround yourself with, as the saying goes, the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So all that can contribute to you being able to have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, smile at adversity and take it as opportunity to learn and grow or not. Like, so all those factors contribute to that. And then I would say part of that, and this is on the emotional, mental side of the resilience, is how capable are you in sitting inside your own chaos, inside your own system, and how capable you're sitting in the chaos of people around you. So like, yeah, and I find this with a lot of guys that I work with, guys in our men's group. This is for both men and women. We seek distraction. We don't like how we feel. We don't like what we're thinking. So, drugs, alcohol, porn, Netflix, worked out. Like, we do all these things to distract ourselves. Resilience to me in that case, like learning to sit in your own uncomfortable experience. There's valuable information there about you and your life and how you walk through the world. If you don't deal with it and you keep either repressing it and ignoring it, it's going to come out one of two ways: sideways in passive aggressive behavior, or physiological in terms of chronic illness somewhere down the road.
For sure. Sure. Yeah. So, Mike, tell me a bit about your story. You had an interesting background with cybersecurity. What was your background? What led you to this?
Wow. Okay. So I had two parallel paths. I've been a marriage and family therapist, as you said earlier, coaching for 25, 30 years. And in parallel with that, I also was doing public policy. And a lot of the public policy work was in the national security space, defense reform, foreign policy, cybersecurity. But I also did other projects as well. So, and people were like, well, what's one have to do with the other? Like, what does therapy and coaching have to do with policy work? And for me, the answer is pretty simple. It's all about human relationships. The scale is different. Like, how the United States relates to a foreign country or how the United States government relates to individuals within our own community. It's scale, but it's also relationship. So I always looked at it that way and asked the questions, or I actually looked at these situations, says like, that makes no sense to me why we do that, because it violates certain principles which guide us as a country, and or doesn't seem to be pro-social, doesn't bring out the best in people. It operates out of fears and insecurities. And those kind of big picture things I see with individuals, with couples or the groups I run or individuals I work with. So the same set of principles guided me in either area of my work. And I was able, to go back and forth between the two quite easily. And then as part of all that stuff too, I think I mentioned to you, I worked for SealFit for about a decade, Commander Mark Fine, helping him to launch and run various programs. I also worked for another SEAL company called Spartan 7. So I have some nice connections in the maybe special warfare community. A lot of those guys, also other operators from other branches as well. I'm doing more projects with these days. So there's a bridge in my mind between like high performance and elite performance, and how to take some of those, like I said, some of those principles and apply them depending on the skill to how we engage the world.
Mm. Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you for all that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, before we close this off, can you give our audience, our listeners, some insight? What's your philosophy? What's one mindset that you want to leave people with that is going to make them more resilient, or just some mindset that you want to leave them with as a parting thought?
Yeah. So one of the things that comes to mind immediately is kindness. Like, the world we live in is tough. It's really tough for a lot of people. And you just don't know that you could be kind to someone and literally save their lives that day. I've worked with people who are suicidal over my years, especially when I was doing therapy, not coaching. And some people are just saved by the simplest kindness from a stranger, or sometimes a therapist or a coach or a family member. But you just don't know what someone's going through. So instead of necessarily judging them and being harsh with them, try to have some compassion and care for them and show some kindness. I think that'd go far way to make the world a little bit better.
I agree. When somebody's having a bad day, you don't know it, and just a kind word can save them from a terrible day. Well, thank you so much for turning up. And, in the show notes, everybody, you can find out how to reach out to Mike if you're interested in talking with him. Thank you for turning up. Thank everybody. Thank you for turning up. And I hope that you enjoyed this show, and we will see you on the next one. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.